Today's guest is Mike Mazur. Mike is a licensed real estate agent with a heavy focus on the investment side of the industry. He is no newbie to the investing world. He's done flips and represented investors all over Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and has loads of experience. Though obviously myself and Mike are both real estate guys, our conversation doesn't just talk about real estate. We go into all things about history and growing up and some childhood things and kind of some traits that hinted that he would at one point be unemployable. We talk about his entry into the business world and being an entrepreneur and what that was like with a magazine that he founded and ran for 10 years. Mike is a wealth of information, and I'm super thankful to have had this conversation. Whether you're just getting started on your investing journey or you're well on your way, or you're just looking for some crazy stories that you're going to hear, this is the episode for you. To support this podcast, please just like, comment, follow, share, do all the things. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Sometimes those projects come to you too, like they just do. Like, and then other times you're like, all right, I'm gonna spend $50,000 on this project, and you end up spending like 80 out of nowhere. Whatever
Absolutely,
might happen
dude.
with it.
Happens all the time.
You open up walls, and you never fucking know what you're gonna get.
I've still to this date, I have never actually hit one of my rehab budgets ever.
I don't think anybody does
Ever.
So it's pretty tough to really figure it out and go for it. So.
I know.
I never
I'm
have
my own
either.
worst enemy though. It's like every time that I've been like midway through a project and I'm like, yo, this is trending good. This is going to be the one. I'm going to come in under budget this time. I readjust midway through the project and I'm like, well, since we're 10 grand under, I can pick out this ridiculous material or something. And I make up for it and I end up over budget by the end of the project. Like, I'm an asshole.
It happens all the time. My one investor, he used to do, he's backed off of doing higher end stuff for his projects because he's realized that it's not worth it. Really? You know, he used to do solid wood doors and like super nice countertops or whatever it was, like go all out. And he just realized that people didn't value that so much. So he started putting in cheaper stuff.
Dude. Yep.
You know, and unfortunately it's selling just the same, you know, it's selling for $300,000, just the same as if you spend another 20 grand on nicer finishes, better stuff. You know, he does all the stuff you have to.
Yep.
But he just doesn't buy, you know, the nice cabinets anymore and stuff. It's like a Lowe's off the shelf. Here you go, throw it in.
You're absolutely right.
You know, he doesn't need to. People don't appreciate it. They just, you know, and this it's sad too because in this market, like they don't because people just want homes.
Yep.
You know, and there's nothing out there.
It's the truth.
So sellers have full advantage right now, even with rates being as high as they are.
Yep.
Sellers still have the advantage.
They do.
You know, and then you get the people like, oh, market's going to crash, it's going to crash. I'm like, it's not. It's not going to crash unless there's a tragic event that happens in the world.
Right. In which case, and that's always been, look, I haven't been through a bunch of market cycles, right? Like, but still, I don't know. I don't see how that could happen.
Yeah.
But if it does, to your point, it would have to be a massive, massive event.
Yeah.
And in that case, everything's fucked anyway. So it's like, it's not just real estate that's taking a hit.
Everything
it's everything.
across the
It's
board.
every market. It's every industry, right? So at that point, you're no safer or riskier being involved in real estate than anything else. So.
It's always bounced back. Always. So, I mean, yeah, maybe you're only planning on living in that house for 5 or 6 years and now you have to live there for 10 to regain back. But it's always the same. So.
Dude, totally agree.
And like the biggest thing that I see with this, and I saw the article the other day, I meant to like bring it in so I could like actually quote from it. But the thing with contractors right now, there's less contractors going into the market to be contractors. And the older ones are leaving the market. So like the average age of a contract now is like 45. I forget what it was, but it was around like 45.
Interesting.
So you have less going in and you have a lot leaving it. So you have less people to build these houses. You know, and that's just talking about new construction.
Right.
To keep with the demand. They're leaving the industry. You know, it's taking a lot longer to build new construction homes than it did even just a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes it tough it makes it more tough on the markets. People are like, oh, you know, supply will come around eventually. But I'm like, not if nobody can build anything, you know, like.
Yep.
And then same with you know, flippers and investors and stuff like that. Like they can't find people to do these projects as quick. You know, I have one guy now. He thought the project's going to take 6 weeks. We're now on like week 12, and it's like finally just getting finished. And it's just he couldn't find people to go do this stuff.
Yep.
So it's a weird market. I feel like we're in like a stagnant kind of market. Like nothing's changing. You know, and then I have buyers too that they, you know, oh, we're going to wait for rates to go down. Okay, you and everybody else.
Yep.
So when you do that, the price of homes is going to skyrocket again.
That's it.
You know, and I hate the one saying, and you hear it all the time, what is it? You know, marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah,
I fucking
yeah.
hate that so much. But it is so true right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so true because you should just buy it now. And then when it does drop, then you can refi.
Yep.
And you'll be in a better spot.
Yep.
So it's just a weird market. At the same time too, I actually kind of like the challenge. I'm not doing as well as I did years prior when it comes to things. I like the challenge though because I think it's going to weed out a lot of people that got into it a couple years ago. That this is easy.
Yep.
You know, like I don't even do anything, and I'm making 10 grand, you know, a month, not doing anything, and now they're like struggling, you know, and doing. I mean, I've gone back to doing rental stuff sometimes. I only did that my first year, and then I got out of it. Now I'm back to doing it sometimes because I need to build that pipeline for a year from now.
What do you mean doing what with rental stuff?
Just showing rentals.
Okay,
you
gotcha.
know, and stuff like that. I mean, essentially, when you do like a rental contract, you're getting like gas money.
Gotcha.
You know, you don't really make anything off of it, but you need to do something.
Yeah, right.
You know, to get by. So it's an interesting market to be in right now for sure.
Yeah. No, every aspect of it.
But I like it. I'm okay with it.
Well, whether you like it or not, you're still in it and you got to deal with it. So
yeah.
better,
true.
better off for your mental state to accept it because we are where we are, you know?
Well, even like we were just talking about before with like the challenges of getting into something. And like I said, too many people prepare to be prepared and they never just start. And you have to just start and make the mistakes or whatever.
Yep.
You know, and I'll bring it back to kind of tie it in a little bit. When we did a skateboard magazine years ago, right? We had no clue what we were doing. We had no clue. We grew it to, I think we're doing like 17,000 or 18,000 copies on issue.
Holy crap.
Up and down the whole East Coast. We're a very East Coast based magazine. We figured out how to do all the advertising. We figured out the logistics of shipping to the shops and stuff like that. And it was just two of us that, dude, we were broke as fuck, living in a dilapidated house in South Philly. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were sharing a computer.
Dude, that's awesome.
I did sales stuff and the editorial crap. And my partner did sales too. We both had to. And he did all the graphic design.
Really?
And we were touring like printing companies and stuff like that. And like and they were just like telling us what to do. We're like, okay, here's your layout. You know, you have to send PDFs like this. You have to use Quark at the time or whatever it was. Like all these different programs to do certain things. We learned about bleeds because we made mistakes. You know, we put stuff and words got cut off in one issue because we didn't really understand it.
Whoops.
Yeah. And then ads got cut off. And we're like, okay, now we learned. You know, but it was a really cool experience. We did that for like 10 years.
Holy crap, man.
Yeah, we did it for a long time.
Wow. So was it all ads throughout it, or were there articles as well? Or?
Oh yeah, no, there was articles.
Yeah.
There was like regular editorial.
Okay.
In the beginning, I did a lot of my own photography. I went to photo school, that whole nine. So I did a lot of photography.
So you should have set all this crap up here, man.
Yeah,
What the
well,
hell?
I don't know any of this stuff anymore. I was doing film. Like I was, you know, I'm in the darkroom and stuff. That's where I learned stuff. But yeah, I was doing all that, and then. Like I said, my partner, he was the graphic designer, but we really never did anything like that before.
Yeah.
We just kind of jumped in.
Wow.
We got a few big advertisers from the get-go that were willing to back us that I just known as friends in the industry. And they put in, and then we sent out our first issue and lost a fortune. But as people saw it, they would call us and ask us, like, okay, how can we advertise in it? So it was a free magazine. We didn't charge for it.
Okay.
You made all your money off of advertising.
Got it.
And then after a few years, we started getting bigger names. You know, we started getting Vans and Nike and stuff like that in there. So it kind of kept going from there. It was a learning experience every year.
Wow.
with stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it was weird.
So if it was a free magazine for the distribution aspect of it, like where were the copies actually going? The physical copies, were they just going to like skate shops or something?
Just skate shops for the most part.
Okay.
In the beginning, when Tower Records was still around, you know, they're not here anymore.
Yep.
We actually had a deal with them too, where we had some of the copies and the Tower Records up in this area.
That's
It was
awesome.
pretty cool. They're like they were actually paying us for it, so it worked out.
That's
It was enough to make ends meet on the shipping side, I guess you could say. To
Gotcha.
them. But it was neat to see. You know, we went to the store the first time, and I was like a giddy little kid seeing our magazine on the shelf in Tower that had been shipped there through, you know, distribution or whatever we figured out. So
that's super cool, man.
but yeah, we did that, and then we started a screen printing business from it. We're printing our own shirts and stuff. Then we worked with the one company that we separated from, which I really regret, but so be it, because he's doing awesome now.
What's that? A printer?
No, it was a clothing company called Rip and Dip.
Okay.
They took off. He's doing great. It's this guy Ryan. I can't remember his name. Ryan. And we were working with him in the beginning with stuff, and it was really neat to do. And then he wanted to go a different direction, and we're like, okay, cool. We'll just sell you our portion for practically nothing. And now he's in like Zoomies and whatever, all those big stores and stuff like that. We're like, oh shit, we fucked up on that one. But you live and you learn. So
That's the truth. How long ago was that?
that was, so we ended the magazine. We started in 2005, May of 2005. We ended it May of 2015. We made sure we made it 10 years.
Okay.
That was like our goal. Like our last year was a struggle.
Really?
We were like, we want to do this for a
What
decade.
changed?
People weren't into the print aspect anymore. Advertisers weren't spending money there as much. Everything was becoming digital. Everything was Instagram and Facebook and whatever was coming out. So they adjusted their funds to go towards that stuff.
Got it.
And print became really difficult. I mean, because we were up against, you know, Thrasher and Transworld and, you know, Slap and stuff like that at the time. So we were up against bigger competitions. It was really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, we had shut that down. We kept the screen printing going for another year or two, I guess you could say, because we bought a building in Philly and we're doing it all out of there.
Okay.
So that was another thing.
Bought a building in
Yeah.
Philly. That's pretty gangster. All right.
Yeah, on 2nd and Berks.
Okay.
Yeah. We had no clue what we were doing with that either.
Made it work.
So, and what is funny is that my partner, Justin, great guy, I still talk to him to this day. He does his own thing. He builds like trinkets and stuff like that and sells them. It's weird. Like the wallet I have and some other stuff. He's weird, but he makes it work. He moved back to Orlando, and he's like, hey, he's like, I have a buddy that wants to get rid of their house. This is my first real estate deal, and I had no clue.
Really?
He's like, I have a buddy. This was like 2000. I don't know. This is before, right when we ended the magazine, so it had to be 2015, right around then. He moved back. Found this house on Jaraconda Ave down in Orlando. He's like, my buddy's trying to get rid of it. I think we should buy it with the money we made off of, you know, the magazine stuff. I was like, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, well, we could buy it and fix it up, and I think we could sell it for more. And like, I had no clue about that at the time. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about flipping or anything. We just did it cash, and I went down there and I stayed there for like a month, and we fixed it up.
No crap.
We like replaced doors and windows ourselves, which I don't know if they were done right or not, but we did.
They didn't fall off or fall out.
No. And we had it, and it was, so it kind of gets morbid. It actually gets really morbid. We had this house, and we were going to sell it. And then he's like, I had this friend, he's having a really hard time. Like, he had some issues with things. You know, can we rent it to him? And I'm like, sure, because we own it outright. So what are we going to rent it for? And whatever it was, $1,000 or $1,200, whatever it was a month. Like, so we're still doing good. So I was like, sure, we'll rent it. Ran to this guy. The guy had a really hard life, I guess you could say. And he was always paying rent on time, like usually a week early, right? I don't know what it was, 7-8 months go by or something. I'd have to, maybe longer. Always paid rent on time. All of a sudden, didn't come in. Tried to call him, no answers. Tried to call him again, no answers. My partner, I was living back up in Philly, so my partner was kind of managing it. He goes there and knocks on the door, no answers. Sees the guy's car in the yard. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So we wait a couple more days. Finally, we find out from his job or whatever that he hadn't been coming in. So my partner finally went over there, knocked on the door. It was like, why should I just go in? I was like, I don't know. Are we allowed to do that? I'm not really sure of the laws, but because I didn't know. I was younger and didn't know. So I'm just gonna go in and see. So he knocked on the door, went in, you know, yelled hello or whatever it was, and actually the guy had committed suicide in the back bedroom there.
Holy shit!
It was like he called me right away. He's like, dude, you're never gonna guess. I'm like, what? And he told us that. So then when that was done, we, cleaned up the house and ended up selling it.
Holy
but
shit.
Dude, it was a weird thing. He was such a good tenant.
Oh my God.
And just, he had issues with things. So
damn, dude.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we ended up selling it. But
and that was your first real estate
deal. That was my first. Well, the building in Philly was our first one.
Okay.
I mean, but we didn't really know.
Your first intentional real estate deal, because you bought that for
flip,
business.
I guess you could say, was the one down in Orlando.
Gotcha.
Which ended up screwing me years later because I didn't realize that, because we had purchased the one in Orlando under my name. We didn't know about the building in Philly was under the company name. That's what we were told to do. We didn't know. The one in Orlando was under my name. So when I went to go buy my first house up here and think, oh, I'll get the first time buyer credit, for Delaware and pay half the transfer tax and whatever else, they're like, oh no, you own property in Florida, it was 12 years, whatever it was, 10 years ago. I was like, oh crap, okay. So I don't get it now. They're like, no. My God, sucks.
Man.
Whatever. So.
Wow.
But yeah, it was an interesting, that was my first real estate. That was before I even did real estate. So
that's insane,
it was weird.
Dude.
Yeah.
What a story. Holy crap. Holy crap.
So it was strange. Yeah, Jacaranda Way or Jacaranda Ave down Orlando somewhere.
Wow. So I guess when you went to resell, you have to disclose all that and everything.
We did. We disclosed whatever. He got an agent and we told him what happened. They're like, well, you just have to write it down on this, disclosure form, and that's what I did.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and whoever bought it, they didn't seem to care.
Okay.
So
it didn't seem like you lost money, you had to sell for less than market value as a result of that.
No,
or anything?
I think we did okay off of it.
Okay,
if I recall.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think we made a fortune, but I think we did okay off of it.
Okay.
Because like I said, we owned it outright for a year and got the rental income on it.
Yeah.
And then we sold it for whatever we sold it for. And we had done all the work ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when you first do work like that, when you don't know how to replace a door or a window, you make 30 trips to Home Depot.
Oh, dude.
You're like, fuck, I have to go back again?
You only do that when you're first starting out, because anytime I do something, I still end up with 30 trips, man.
Yeah, I have too. So,
brutal.
But it was funny. It was interesting. But yeah, the skateboard magazine, I've never really had a real job.
That's crazy.
Ever. I mean, as a kid, I worked.
A real job.
As a kid, I worked, my first job was peeling shrimp. I was a shrimp peeler.
Yeah.
In Ocean City. I did the ice cream bikes and stuff. I did parking lots, stuff like that when I was younger. I was a pizza delivery guy, which is weird now because I don't know how I did it then. I didn't have GPS on my phone or anything. You had a Big Mac with the pizza place. Look it up. Hope you get there.
Wow. That's funny. Yeah, I can't imagine going anywhere these days without
I know, right?
GPS.
I used it to go down the street.
Dude, 100%. 100%.
But then, once I was 18 and went to college, I never, bartending, I guess, is the realest job I've really had.
Okay.
Because I actually had to physically be somewhere at a certain time and couldn't just leave. But yeah, beyond that, it was always the magazine or the screen printing business or, now real estate. That's it.
So where do you think that comes from?
I don't know.
Are you unemployable?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Most business owners and entrepreneurs are in some way, shape, or form.
I think I was difficult
Okay.
for other places.
Okay.
So a good example is I worked at this food service place. I worked there for like 2 months out in Swedesboro. And they didn't want me. It was weird. I didn't really understand it because I was young and stupid. I didn't really care. But they wanted me to physically. So the truckers would bring food back that didn't get delivered for whatever reason. And they're like, okay, well, you got to go put it back on the shelves. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, no problem. And it was a giant warehouse. It's like a mile long. And they wanted me to do it like one by one. I was like, well, why would I do that? I just got the forklift. I picked it up, pallet, and drove and did it from there. And I got like written up like 3 times for it. And like, you can't do that. I'm like, why? They're like, well, that's the union job. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I can get this job done in an hour as opposed to doing it 4 hours.
That's not how it works, Junior.
Yeah. So that didn't work out. But that's a good example of why I'm probably unemployable, as you would say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Not able to conform to stupidity. All right. Got it. Yep. I check off that box.
Kind of, yeah.
So, did you, even childhood, growing up and everything, what was school like for you?
That's a good question, actually. Both my parents were in the Coast Guard, so we moved around a lot. as kids. I probably moved, I don't know, 12 times as a kid.
Wow.
Give or take. We started in Jersey. I think we went to like New Hampshire, worked our way back to Jersey, worked our way down to Florida, went to Maryland. Like we just moved all over the place. So school for me it's interesting to see because I have a brother too. He's a little younger than me. He's like very introverted and like hates people and hates crowds and doesn't want anything. He's a truck driver. So it's a perfect job for him. And then I was always more out, let's go do stuff or whatever. I don't care because I'm not going to see you guys in a year because I'm going to move again. So that was kind of my childhood, was growing up and like just moving around a lot. While we were a military family, they weren't really that strict. And my parents always just had this notion of they weren't like strict on me with stuff. It was weird. And like because of that, I didn't really like I wasn't really a bad kid, I don't think. I had my issues that I got into got into trouble and stuff, especially with skateboarding, and I did motocross and all that stuff. So but yeah, we just moved around a lot. So okay. I don't know if that has anything to do with why I'm like, oh, I can do whatever. Because if it doesn't work, I'll just switch it up and do something else.
Interesting.
And just adapt to whatever. Because that's what my whole life was we're moving next year. Gonna have to make new friends. Gonna have to adapt to whatever's coming. And I think that's why real estate really became a good thing for me when I got into it. Because as you know, every deal is a different puzzle.
Totally.
None of my deals are ever easy. I get like one a year. I'll have one a year where it just goes easy and smooth, except for the ones where the investors just, throw my name on something that they bought from the bank.
Right.
Minus those ones though, like they're never easy. They're always difficult.
I feel that. And they're never the same.
No,
right?
they're never the same. It's never the same. And you learn so much each time of what to do and how to
just
get
like
through
we were talking about probably before we were rolling, but with certain townships and their requirements and everything, that's one of the most frustrating parts because there is no consistency. Like how is it when I flip a house in this town and they tell us that, it's code to have whatever, I'm thinking of receptacles because I'm looking at a receptacle, like we literally had township inspectors fail us because the ground was on the bottom as opposed to the top of the receptacle. Okay, cool. You look at IRC code or whatever, and it says, the ground's supposed to be on the top, whatever. And then you do that in the next township, and they're like, nope, it's wrong. It's backwards. Turn them around. It's like, what do you mean? Like now in this case, I can show you on paper where it says that this is like the code standard. They're like, well, we make the fucking rules around here, buddy.
They're tough. Right? Yeah, they're tough.
That's frustrating because how can you learn? How can you improve and do better?
Well, one of the other frustrating, so some of the townships I've learned pretty well, and I've been okay with going through stuff, and mostly just with the investors and helping them work through it because I've built a relationship with certain inspectors in certain townships. My most frustrating one was that house I did in Philadelphia. That was like the worst experience I ever went through. And they come by and they fail you. Okay, well, what do I need to fix? Well, you got to figure that out. Well, just you're the inspector. Tell me what I need to do here.
Nah, really?
Dude, they were like wouldn't help us. I remember going to LNI a couple times and they would like scream at me and I'm like, I'm just trying to find out what to do, guys.
Yeah. I'm
trying to find out what to do. Like, well, maybe you shouldn't be here. Okay, but I am and I have to get it done. So please help.
Oh my God. Was that your first project in Philly?
Yeah, I'll never go back there.
Okay.
Again. That was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
So that one crushed me. I'm still paying for it at this point, but we got through it eventually and got it done and sold and closed. And I haven't heard from the people for like 6 months now, so I'm assuming it's okay.
What, the people that bought it, the buyer?
Yeah. I thought I was like, I'm going to close on this. And I was like, dude, it was like a never ending nightmare. Like I felt like there was always something else that was an issue with it. And I'm just
like what? Give some examples here for context.
All right. So for instance, like Pico, right? We had to reattach to the grid because there's no power line to the house. We had to reattach.
Just saying, Pico, you're going to start to make my blood boil, but continue.
So anyway, they come out, they inspect it. They're like, oh, you need to move the line on the back of the house up 6 inches. We're like, okay. Have the electrician come back out, move the main line up 6 inches. They come back out like, well, now it's too close to the deck out back, and someone can reach over and grab it and shock themselves. And like in my head, I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I guess someone could reach over and grab it. They would have to really want to, and I don't know why anybody would, but okay. So they told us to move it back, so we moved it back, right? And each time, you got to wait weeks for them to come back out.
It's not an instant
So that's
thing.
what sucks. Yep. We must have moved that line like 4 times before it finally went back to exactly where it started at.
Oh
and that's where they were good. And like that was consistent with that house, nonstop. It was stuff like that, and you'd finally think you're done, and they'd come out and fail you on something, and you do it, they'd come back out again. And like I said, you're waiting weeks in between with inspections.
Yep.
And we ran into some bad contractors, unfortunately, that just disappeared on us. So that just, multiplied it.
Right.
So it went from being like what should have been like a 6-month project to like over 2 years.
Wow. 2 years is long.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So we got crushed.
Did you have a hard money loan or private money loan?
We had a private money loan. We did work out with them what it was. They wanted X amount of interest, and we were just like, it's not there. It's not there. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
This is what we can do, So we did get through it, but it was like I would never go back to that city.
Dude, yeah. No, I hear you. Like I've only done a few flips in Philly, and all of them have been with a partner that has done flips in the city before, and still, even at that, we had one that we totally got our asses handed to us on, that really we anticipated it was going to be a rehab. Because like in my mind, we had done a couple flips in the city. They all made a little bit of money and everything, and started to try to like systematize and look at the pros and cons, right? If we're looking at the inverse of what I just said that we deal with the local townships and everything outside of the city, at least here's one of the benefits, right? Is what to expect. What the rules are. Like, what the code is going to be and what you're going to be judged based off of. Maybe the inspector's going to be a dick and not actually tell you what you failed for. But it's like, okay, so it's got that going for it. And, one of the other things, like structure-wise, well, that you got a party wall, and a front and back wall, right? Everything's a row home. Maybe you're an end of a row. We bought one that was a middle of a row. When we went to gut it, we demoed and found out that it was not masonry party walls on either side. Oh, wow. And the foundation was failing. And it was just a stick-framed wall on either side. So now we had to meticulously, piece by piece, take apart other people's fucking houses on either side, right? Jesus. So talk about risk.
Yeah.
And once we finally got the demo done and everything, it sat there as just a hole in the ground for like 9 months because we were getting our asses handed to us with getting approvals done for the new build plans and everything. And eventually we ended up selling it for like, I think it was a $40,000 or $50,000 loss. And it was tough because, dude, that was the thing. Looking at it at that time, the option, like it still looked like it was going to be profitable if we went through and did the build. But we hadn't started the build yet. It wasn't even approved yet. And it was like, okay, the options that are on the table are basically go through with the build and it's going to make $100,000, but there's going to be money tied up for another 18 to 24 months. And maybe some things go wrong. Maybe the profit's a little bit less. Maybe it makes 70 grand, right? Maybe it makes a little bit more. So the options are lose $40,000 today, but still put cash back in our pocket because I had a bunch of cash into the deal, or float that money for another year and a half or 2 years to maybe make a profit. It's like, it was a no-brainer. It's like, just cut our losses, put a little bit of cash back in our pocket.
I wish I had done that too. I kept going forward with it and just finishing the project. And I was like, I should just let it go when I had the chance.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
But I like to make things difficult on myself, like I said. So I decided to add a third story to it. That was a whole other thing. Yeah, that was fun. So I didn't realize what that was going to entail.
Did you have a setback or did you?
Yeah, we had to do the setback and all that. And we did hire an engineer, had to do that. We knew there was going to be a cost to it to do it. Just didn't realize what exactly it was going to cost. And it wasn't even the cost of like actually doing it. It was that the people we kept hiring kept like just disappearing, and that's what I learned in Philadelphia is like, unless you have like your legit own crew, it almost seems like it's impossible.
So with these guys that were disappearing on you, was it like you were paying them a deposit to do something, signing contracts, and they would just roll with your money?
We're in a big legal battle right now with one of them with, I don't know how much I can talk about it, but there's like 24 other people that were, 24 plus other people that were scammed by him. and it became a big thing. It's actually with like the DA of Philly now, and like it's been ongoing for a little over a year at this point. So
I know this story. I know some other people and everything.
you probably know some of the people I'm talking about that were scammed by him.
I do. But
and then we had him as one of our. That's where we lost the most. Was that one? So.
That sucks. What did you end up losing directly due to that company?
Probably like 50. Wow. Just from him alone.
Wow.
Or more. So, live and you learn. That's all.
So let me ask you on that. So what was your biggest learning lesson from that project and dealing with all the bullshit, getting scammed? What were your biggest takeaways?
I think I would say looking in, really vetting contractors, asking them for all their stuff. Let me see your license. Let me look it up. Let me see if you have violations. Let me see anything about you, any bad reviews or good reviews or whatever. I think that's the biggest lesson I learned more than anything else, was just like really making sure you vet people. And if they aren't willing to do it, you can't trust them. You just can't. And working out different types of deposits and stuff. Hey, I need 50% up front. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I learned from one of my other investors, like, yeah, I learned the hard way too. He's like, I used to tell him to give me a list of supplies and I'll go pick it up and drop it off. So at least that way I'm not out the money on the supplies.
Yep.
You need 200 2x4s and this, whatever it is, just tell me, I'll go buy it and I'll drop it off. And while that seems like a little intense to do, as like, you shouldn't have to go do all that. You should be able to, time's money. You shouldn't have to take that out of your day, but that's what I started doing in the end. What do you guys need? I'll go get it. I will drop it off.
Yep.
So that's probably the biggest thing I learned too. And when you're done, I'll give you a deposit up front for hourly. I get it, but when you're done, then I'll pay you the rest. And then we just kept getting screwed over by people. So
I totally hear you, man. It's tough. Like I know people that run like big amounts of flips or just rental rehabs per year, guys that are doing 100, 200, 300 flips a year. And that's my question for everybody. It's like, dude, just how? From a construction perspective, right? It's like the only way that I can see that being feasible based on my current knowledge, skills, resources, and history is by doing it with my own company, my own construction company, having that in-house. So you kind of have a finger on the pulse with a lot of things.
Your own people that you trust.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and they're on payroll, and it's like there's pros and cons with that because there's a lot of costs and unknowns with that as well. It's like at least when you have a subcontractor that you're paying whatever, 10 grand, 15 grand to do a job, and one of his guys spills a bucket of paint on your brand new floors and everything, he's picking up the tab, not you. When it's an employee, it's like you're picking up the tab on everything. I've been down that road. Like I've had my own construction company and saw the sunshine and rainbows that comes with it, But still, all of the experiences that I've had, I still think that that's the only way that I can see being able to operate at scale. Now, obviously, there's plenty of people that operate at scale in different ways, but yeah, man, my experience has been the same. Like, it's tough. Like
it does. I guess it's tough. So, but you get through it.
You get through it. You get through it.
That's all I can say is that you either get through it or you die trying. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, or you fucking quit.
Yeah,
or you fucking quit.
I never wanted to quit. I always tried to just keep going and get it done.
I love that.
So, but it's burned me. I'm starting to learn more too that I need to start watching out for myself more than other people's feelings when it comes to certain things. And that's really hard to do because I was always like a people pleaser in a sense. And I'm just learning more and more like, fuck them. Like, because nobody else cares about you. So
speaking of my soul, man, fuck.
It gets tough.
Fuck. Well, let's open that up because I feel the same way, man. I feel the same way. And like, I was just having a conversation. It might've been with my wife on the exact same topic where it's like, I don't know. I think in the last year, like a bunch of the things that I've dealt with, like struggles, difficulty with different business things, with different people. The hardest thing for me was mentally just dealing with the fact that I had a lot of people that I thought were like really in my circle hurt me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And it's not even about like a financial loss. It's not anything like that. It's, look, I've been burned just like everybody has, and everybody will be in business many, 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 many times
Always.
over.
You just deal with
But
it.
you take it and you move forward. But I don't know. My wife said to me the other week, she was like, obviously you have a very poor judge of character, Drew, because like, you think that everybody is super close to you and they feel the same way about me that I feel about them. And I've just been proven wrong time and time and time again. And that's a really disheartening thing for me. And I still haven't accepted it. But it's hard when like the world slaps you in the face time and time and time again, is like, look, dummy, nobody fucking cares. And ultimately people will screw you over, even if you believe that they're really close to you, if it puts them in a better position.
Yeah, I could say that not everyone, but I'll definitely say that there are a few people that I met that I did trust, and to this day I still feel comfortable with them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I still have
there are, but it just seems like more often than not they're out to eventually get you.
Yeah, I guess that's my problem. Because no, look, I'm
it just
with
seems
you.
like that's how it is sometimes.
I'm with you.
And it's like fuck, like, and I did learn that too with people. Like I have to do contracts with people, and it's like, even with like my own family and stuff, like I'll do contracts with them at this point. I don't know who to trust anymore at times with things,
So I have a perspective on contracts, and now it depends like on the actual deal that we're talking about or whatever, but I am a handshake agreement guy, and
Same.
I have been burned so many times, and I don't even fucking care. That sounds stupid, but
no,
legit.
It's not. I agree. I'm the same way,
Dude.
I just figured people would have me if I had them, and whatever. And I'm not a fucking perfect person by any means myself, but
Sure.
I just feel like sometimes like, hey, we agreed upon this, like we shook hands upon this.
Yep.
But that meant nothing.
Yep.
And that just sucks sometimes.
I totally agree.
And then you get pissed off, and then you rage, and you end up taking out other people that you shouldn't.
Right.
Which I'm definitely at fault for, without a doubt. I've done things to other people based on something that happened with someone else, and that sucks. But usually I come around and try and apologize and take care of it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
So try and be accountable as much as I can.
Look, everything's communication, right? It's like, no matter what it is that we're talking about, everything comes down to communication, whether we're talking about contractors, we're talking about clients, buyers, whatever, it's all communication.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But that brings me back to the one thing we were talking about too earlier with like doing stuff through text messages or social media. Everybody reads so different.
Totally.
Like I said, people add commas and periods places where they shouldn't, and you could write something online and it gets taken totally different than you even thought it would mean.
Totally.
And it sucks sometimes. And then you meet these people in person or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, you said this, and I didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant. And usually you make up, and like it's not a big deal. But
right.
It is funny to see that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It gets crazy. It gets so lost in translation of things. I guess you could say that as when you're in person with someone, it's different than online or a text message or an email.
Yep.
Or whatever. Like, someone's pissed off about something that happened during their day, and they read your email that you're against them and hate them and whatever else, and it gets crazy. So
how do you solve that?
Usually a phone call or an in-person meetup of some kind, if they're willing to.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all you can really do.
I love in-person so much more, man.
Yeah. It's tough though. Like everybody's gotten away from it so much.
I know. Well, technology makes it easier to not be with people.
And maybe
but I think that's why it's even more important now, dude.
Yeah.
Because there are so many ways to, whether it's a, FaceTime call or something with somebody, it's still different, man. It's not the same. Now, I do like being on a video call or a Zoom much more than a phone call. Yeah. But if I can choose, man, no, like I'd rather be face to face with somebody,
Yeah, exactly.
Hands down. Which is super ironic that I built a company that revolves around phone sales, like when I hate being on a phone, but it is what it is.
It gets awkward being on like cold calling and stuff like that. You know, when we did the magazine and having to call some of these companies and figure out ways to meet them and stuff, even in person, we used to go to the trade shows in like Orlando and stuff. And like meeting some of these bigger, you know, executives and stuff was like really frightening almost at times. Because you just want to send an email and hope they just said, yeah, sure, we'll do an ad, no problem. And like, that was the end of it. But sometimes you had to like wine and dine them essentially, for lack of a better term. And that was a really weird thing to get used to. Like
So what would that look like?
You just had to step outside your comfort zone sometimes. And I learned that more and more, and I still don't do it all the way. But I do feel like sometimes to get things done, you have to go do things that you're not comfortable doing. Even this, I wasn't really comfortable doing this, to be honest. Dude, I thought it was going to be weird. Look, I always wanted to do it. I always thought I could be like a celebrity in my own head, but I was like, no, I'm not ready for it. What if I said something stupid or whatever?
Look, it is weird, right? Yeah. Like I still, you know, I've only been doing it for a solid like 4 or 5 weeks now, you know, which amounts to, I think last week, that was episode like number 7. So this makes number 8 right here. So I am by far
I got you.
no
You're
expert
doing a great
at
job,
it.
though.
Well, thank you. But that's the thing. Like I had a guy on 2 weeks ago, Chase Gallagher, and he's a young kid. He's I think 23 years old or something, and he does a lot of stuff on social media and everything. And I was talking to him about exactly that. Like I still feel a lot of times like when I'm posting things, not necessarily like podcasts, this kind of just feels like cool. We're just having a conversation and it's fine and it'll get chopped up into short clips and everything and wonderful. But like doing purposeful content where it's either recording a video or you're in public and shooting like a picture of something, it feels weird. Like I still don't know how to not feel like a douchebag, like, you know, with my phone in selfie mode.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
But at the same time, that is stepping out of your comfort zone.
Sometimes.
And, you know, you have to not look at it through the lens of what the 10 people that are standing around you might be thinking, and rather think about it from the perspective of the 1,000 people that are going to end up seeing this online. How are they going to be viewing it? Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's.
Well, like, you know what's funny? I just started doing it again, too, was door knocking.
Okay.
Which like seems so like
that's
outdated,
gangster.
Right?
Ah, dude, that's
but
awesome.
But like the scariest part is like the first like 3 or 4 houses are probably the scariest. After that, you're like, okay, this is fine. You know, you just knock, you get yelled at, and then you move on to the next one. You just try to learn not to take it personal. You know, but I used to do that in the very beginning when I started real estate, whatever it was, 7 years ago, I guess it was. I did that a lot in the beginning, was door knocking, because that's what I read about and that's what I thought you had to do. You know, and then I didn't do it for a long time. And then recently, with this year being a little more difficult on things, I was like, well, I got to go back to, you know, maybe some old school tactics that people don't do anymore. You know, everybody's doing social media ads and stuff like that. Like maybe that isn't, maybe, you know, like they say, history repeats itself. I'll go back to door knocking and sending out flyers and doing weird, you know, different stuff like that. That's what you used to do.
Yep.
And it's worked, you know, but it is weird. It is stepping out your comfort zone to do stuff like that. Walking up the knock, and like you never know what you're gonna get with people. So,
what's the craziest thing that's happened when you've done some door knocking?
I haven't really had anything too crazy happen. I've had people threaten me with, you know, oh, this is a no solicitation neighborhood, and like. I've had that a few times. Like sometimes I just don't know. I don't know if it's not a solicit. Sometimes you go in the neighborhood, you see right out front where it says no soliciting. I'm like, okay, well I won't do it here then.
Okay.
But you do get some.
But that's
people
not an illegal thing, though.
No,
right?
It's not illegal. But people, I don't know. They like don't want to be their privacy invaded, which I fully understand. And
sure.
Agree. I got you there.
Fully understand, but I'm still gonna knock on your fucking door.
Yeah, like I gotta make a living too, you know. So I'm gonna try it, you know. And if you're gonna really be like an asshole about it, then that's fine. I'll leave. No big deal. I'll just move on. It's not a problem.
Dude, it's fine.
I don't have anything in particular though where I ever got like chased or anything, you know, crazy like that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I can see like just in my experience with marketing and everything, like I can see people being really, really bent out of shape knocking on their door. Like we've had some crazy things just when we send somebody a letter in the mail and like not even like we send a lot of those third notice postcards and everything. We get a lot of pissed off people from that.
Yeah.
But even when we've sent somebody like a handwritten yellow letter or something that says, hey, we just want to buy your house. And you get people calling like, I'm going to find you and burn your fucking house down and everything. It's like, dude, I just sent you a letter. Like, you can either throw it in the
throw it
trash.
away.
You could do that. Or, you could call us and say, not interested. And then, we're not going to spend the money sending you mail again. But instead, you're threatening to come here and find us and all this crazy stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, I haven't had anything like that.
Well, that's good. God bless.
So,
God bless.
I have run into squatters in houses before.
Ooh, okay.
And that's always fun.
Yeah.
So I had one guy, one of my investors, he bought a house and he's like, I think it's empty. Can you go check? And I was like, sure. And as soon as I got there, I had this weird gut feeling. It just was weird. It was downtown then. And I was like, there's something not right. I don't know. I had a weird feeling in my gut about
Was this
something.
a listed property?
No, it was a bank-owned one that he got through an asset manager that he knew from a bank and stuff like that. And I went there. I had felt weird, so I actually grabbed my the tire iron out of the back of my car. I had a car at the time, at the back of my car, because I was like, something doesn't seem right. I went up and I unlocked the door and put the combo in that the bank provided and went in there. And there was 2 or 3 people in there, and I don't know what they were on, but it wasn't right. And they started screaming at me and coming at me, and I left real quick. I wasn't getting to a fight over it. It was not worth my time to do, or my life essentially. But yeah, I'm glad I had that with me just in case I had to use it. But I was like, okay, I'm going. I'll see you later. And I call him, yeah, there's a few people in there. He's like, okay, I'll deal with it. I'm like, okay. So
crazy, man.
Yeah, it's weird, but it was just weird that I just had that gut feeling, and I've had that a few times, and I've learned to try and trust my gut feeling, not just in that scenario, but on a lot of stuff.
Sure,
you just get feelings sometimes, and usually it ends up being right, and it's it's almost sad sometimes to see, but that was one case where I got out of the car and I was like, there wasn't any other cars there, there wasn't any lights on, there was no electric or anything. I just had a weird feeling about this house.
Yep. I totally understand.
So that was in there, and I don't know what drugs they were on, but it was crazy.
Totally hear you, man. That's wild. Yeah, I've had a couple of crazy squatter situations. That's the thing. It doesn't sound like, if somebody listening hasn't been in vacant properties before and doesn't really understand the whole, situation that can go hand in hand with squatters, they could be high, or they could be escaped criminal like this Chester County dude, right? You just don't know, man, right?
No.
It can be a really dangerous thing, you just don't know.
Oh, you never know what you're going to find in some of these properties. Not even with just squatters, just in general. I've gone in the properties, and it's weird to see shit in properties sometimes. What was people thinking with this place?
Dude.
What were they doing? Building a wall here, or taking this out here, whatever it is.
Actually, that reminds me. That's weird. Dude, talk about weird and scary, and squatters also. We had a property under contract in Chester, I don't know, this is probably 2-3 years ago. And I think it was an 8 or 9 unit property. Guy that we were under contract with was like, yeah, I haven't been there in forever. It's all boarded up, whatever. Go check it out, take the board off. And now, obviously, it was in Chester, and I was already fully aware and had a gun and a partner who also had a gun. So we were prepared for what we might find. But it was the same thing, just had that feeling walking in the door, it's obviously vacant, it's partially gutted, there's just crap everywhere. And it just felt like we weren't alone, that feeling that somebody is here, right?
Yep.
So literally, we're going around room to room. I got my gun out and everything. And when you go into a place like that, yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening and you end up going into a vacant property, I always try to make aware, here I am, I'm in the building, is anybody here? I'm hollering, I'm like, hey, just here to look at the property, I don't know what's going on, is anybody here? Just holler out. And sometimes people will respond, and it's okay, I'm out, I don't fucking care,
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I always do the same thing. I always try and make it aware, even with just residential stuff, regular residential stuff, when I open the door,
absolutely,
realtors here, hello.
Yep.
Even if I know the house is vacant, I just say it anyway.
100%.
It's been a natural thing just to do.
But when you have that feeling in the pit of your gut that there's someone here and nobody's answering, now you feel even worse. So we're going around, dude. I'm going room to room, clearing and everything. And I, my partner went one way, I went another way. It's a big building. And I walk into this one bedroom, and it's empty. There's a mattress on the floor and just some shit everywhere, right? And I go around a corner, there's like a closet that doesn't have a door on it. And I turn the corner and there's literally a leg sticking up in the air. I almost fucking shot it. It turned out, dude, it was like a sex doll that somebody had stuffed in there. And I almost shot a sex doll in a
That's awesome.
Chester abandoned property. Like it sounds funny in hindsight, but it's like, dude, it was scary, as crap when it happened.
Sure.
Like I just see a body there. I don't know if it's about to jump out at me. I don't know if it's a dead body. Didn't process in my mind. I just saw it and I'm just like, what the fuck? You know? Oh man.
I had that with a mannequin one time in a house down in New York. I did walk in and like, I mean, I was just with people. It was a vacant it wasn't like a bank owned or like the regular like residential sale that was vacant, but there was a mannequin standing up in like the middle of the room. I don't know why they had it in the middle of the room standing up, but I turned the corner and I saw it and it like shocked me for a second.
Yeah, how could that
was
not
really
shock
weird.
you?
Yeah.
They had to do that intentionally.
I think they did, but that's okay. That's fine.
That's kind of funny.
So it was it was different for sure. But the things that you see in houses are crazy, you know.
Yeah, man.
I've walked in all kinds of stuff and seen ponds with frogs in it and stuff in the middle of the kitchen and whatever else it might be in there.
Ponds with frogs. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the satanic stuff people write on walls sometimes, those are always fun too.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of freaks you out a little bit.
Yep.
You're like, what's going on in here? You know, you see like big pentagons on the floor with like candles around. You're like, okay, I don't know if I want to be in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a weird.
The wonderful world of real estate
fun.
investing,
I like
man.
it.
It is. It's definitely an adventure, you know?
Yeah. I really wish I did this like years prior. I do. I really wish I did real estate a long time prior. I mean, even though I kind of did during the magazine days in a sense, I didn't really know anything about it, you know? So we, you know, like I said, we bought that house. We did all the repairs ourselves.
Yeah.
We just went through like that. We didn't know what we were doing, you know? So, but yeah, it's a fun career for the right person. I don't think it's for everyone.
You know, I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago about a similar topic, and like I used to be a lot more vocal on social media, kind of like being the cheerleader that everybody should be in real estate and everybody should at least buy a couple rental properties, bring in some cash flow. You're going to have like, that can be your retirement, and you know, it's not hard. And I kind of stopped because I saw a couple people that I knew that got into real estate in some capacity. And in hindsight, like they did really poorly, and looking at it, they had no business being in business, right?
Yeah.
Like people say all the time, oh, well, like it's an investment. Dude,
sometimes
what we do, like when you're talking about flipping or rentals or definitely wholesaling, it's like it is not an investment. It happens to be in the world of real estate investment, but it's an active thing. Like it's an active income. It's very naive to think I can flip a bunch of properties while I still have a full-time job. Now, that being said, I did it too, but I'm weird, right? Like I have no problem working 100 hours a week, you know? Like you got to be able to put in the time, effort, and energy. And I see too many people too often that have unrealistic expectations. I'm going to buy a rental. I'm going to make $300, $500 a month in cash flow, whatever, and everything's going to be peachy. I'm never going to have to take a tenant phone call. I'm never going to have to fix a toilet on, you know, Sunday night, the day before Christmas. Nah, you fucking are. Like these things are going to happen. You're going to deal with crap.
Like I said, I learned a lot from some of my investors. I learned a lot of stuff I know about real estate more than I learned from any, you know, brokerage I've worked at. I've learned from the investors on their failures throughout time with stuff more than anything else. You know, like my one guy, he's taught me so much on how to sometimes get creative with a deal. And I can't think of an example right now, but I've done creative things on deals before to get them through. When you thought it was dead and you're like, okay, well, a deal's never dead until it's really dead. You know, like I'll kick a dead horse for a little bit on certain things and see.
Totally agree.
And most of the time you can make it work. You know, maybe it's not the best scenario for the buyer and the seller, but usually you can push it through and make it work. I guess the one example was when I learned about like the 90-day flip rule. or 91-day flip rule.
Yep.
That was always a fun one because I didn't know anything about that prior. And we went under contract on something and found out, no, you couldn't because we were only at like 80 days and it has to be from the time the contract signed. So like everybody was willing to just give up. And my one guy was like, well, just redo the contract and just go from there. And you're going to have to start over kind of. But at this point, count the days out and, have them sign the contract then. And that's what we did. It was supposed to close like the following week or whatever, and it came up in underwriting with that. I don't know why it took so long to find that, but it did.
Because they were FHA.
Yeah, and then so we just re-signed the contract again, redid it, and did a new closing date that was a month out from that week we were supposed to close.
Got it.
So we got through it. Everybody wasn't happy because the buyers. I had the sellers. The buyers had to pay for rent for another month and stuff like that, so they weren't happy. The seller had a hard money loan on it, so. He's going to pay more interest. And it got into an argument for a little bit. Oh, will the seller pay the rent for it, or whatever. And it's like, well, he's paying,
well, if he bought the house, he would be paying a mortgage,
Yeah, he's paying another $2,000 a month in interest, so he's not doing it either.
Right.
And eventually it worked out. But that was like one scenario where I learned from him, like, oh, just do this. It's not a big deal. And from that, when I have investors flip a house now, if I know it's close, just kind of in my mind, I'll check and count out the days.
Okay.
Physically count out the days just to make sure I'm at 91 or whatever.
Got it.
And if it's like a week before and someone's like, we want to do an offer, I'm like, okay, but we got to wait a week before we sign it, and I'll explain it then and pass on the knowledge to people. And it's not really ever taught to you.
Yeah.
In like real estate school or anything like that. That's just something you just happen to stumble on sometimes.
Yep.
With
Absolutely.
that flip rule. And then with the double appraisals and stuff like that, and now I know the watch for that. If it's under 180 days, it's going to require 2 appraisals. And I'll try and be upfront with agents about that from the get-go.
Is that always the case?
It hasn't always been. It seems like I've run into that more recently with FHA buyers.
But that's only a function of FHA, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think conventional cares that I've run into it.
Yeah.
But I'll be upfront people now. Like if it is within that time frame, I'll just tell them like, hey, here's how it is. This is what we got to do. Like I'll see if the sellers, because they usually try and pin it on the sellers, I think, to pay the second appraisal.
The second one, yeah.
So I usually try and make sure the seller knows that too. Like, hey, here's the deal. The buyer is going to buy their first appraisal for whatever they are, $500 or $600 now, and you're going to have to pay for the second one.
Yep.
I just want to be upfront with you now. Be upfront with everybody. So, and that's what I've learned with doing real estate is the more you're transparent with things up front. I mean, sometimes you just don't know. I don't know everything. I run into problems all the time. Like, oh, fuck, I wish I knew that before. This would have made it easier.
Yep.
But I try my best to be upfront with most people when it comes to things because it just makes it easier. Even if it's scary or something, you're like, fuck, this might kill the deal now because, I have to tell them about whatever it might be, And it just, you run into it and you just learn, though, that being upfront is so much easier than being halfway through a deal and having a disaster, and then everybody hates each other.
Dude, totally agree. And look, we deal with it all the time, like in the world of wholesaling, right? Like there's so many people out there, whether they work, as a solopreneur for themselves, or if they run a company that, that's why wholesalers have a bad name, is because there's so much dishonesty and stuff that goes on. But at the end of the day, when you are honest with a seller with what you're doing and what your intentions are, especially for me, myself, anytime that I've had conversations, I have never had a seller say, oh, wait, you're doing what? You're assigning this and, you're going to make X amount of dollars. And like, I don't want that to happen. I've never, ever, ever had that because when you explain things well and you're transparent and honest and they see that you operate ethically, they really don't give a shit, right? It's like, what's the difference for the seller at the end of the day if they're under the impression that Mike is buying my house and he's going to fix it up and flip it just like they do on HGTV. And I know that he's doing that as a business proposition. He wants to make money. Mike wants to flip my house and make money, and I'm good with that. What is the difference for the seller between that and Mike is putting our house under contract and making a few bucks selling to this other investor that's going to do this thing like they do on HGTV? There's no difference for them. There's none.
It's funny. It's like that you bring that up because wholesalers do generally have a bad reputation.
I know.
You know, and I've dealt with a lot of, and I'll admit, like the beginning, I didn't like wholesalers either.
Dude, I totally get it.
I thought it was
I'm a wholesaler and I don't like a lot of
business
wholesalers,
from
bro.
me and stuff like that. And I was like, I hate them anyway. They don't know. And like, I got into it a few times and I regret it now because I've learned that that's just, you know, there are some as yourself that work very ethically with sellers and stuff. And there's no surprise at the table. Oh, he's getting paid 20 grand on this deal. Like, I didn't know, you know, it doesn't blow up. There are a lot of very unethical ones that get into it and they don't explain these things to sellers and stuff like that. And I definitely hated on wholesalers in the beginning. And then I learned, and then I talk to agents now that will tell me I hate wholesalers. I'm like, well, they're really not bad. Like some of them are, but there are some
it's like
really
everything.
good ones.
Yep.
And are they going to make money? Yeah, because everybody's in this to make money. They're not doing it for free.
Totally.
You know, I get like the hatred on it because, as you said, there's a lot of shady stuff that happens sometimes.
There is.
And people don't know.
Yep.
You know, especially when I know it's going to be like a double close. I'm like, well, then you didn't tell the seller something here because you didn't want them to know that you're going to do that.
Yep.
You know, so.
Dude, to this day, out of doing hundreds of deals, I think I've double closed twice ever.
Yeah.
Like, and we've had buyers that are like, oh my God, you're going to let the seller see on the HUD that you're making whatever, you know, giant assignments that we've done. You're going to let them see that you're making $80,000? Yeah. Yeah, because we already had a conversation with them up front. Now, we didn't tell them, hey, I'm making $80,000 on this, right? But they knew what we're doing. They know that we are, putting a buyer in place and we're being paid to do so, and they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah, it's just it's unfortunate.
Honesty, wow.
I know, but it is unfortunate that wholesalers in general have that bad reputation. You know, because and like I said, I wasn't a fan either a long time ago, and then I was
so
like,
much of it just comes from either misinformation or disinformation, right? Like there's so many people out there that are just running around because they saw one video on YouTube and they're like, oh, I can make $20,000 this month without spending any money, blah, blah, blah. It's wonderful. And they just jump right in because it can be a low barrier to entry thing, right? Yeah. And now they're going out, they're having conversations with sellers when they don't really know what to say, don't even know how to navigate a regular real estate transaction, let alone what they're trying to do. Yeah. And there's a lot more complexities. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And to actually be good at the acquisition side and trans coordinating, which is a whole nother ballgame, you have to know a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you were uneducated and you did speak honestly and openly with a seller, like, how can you be honest? Because you don't really know how any of the process needs to work to get the deal to the settlement table, right? So,
and it goes back to what I was saying too. Like sometimes you do, if you're willing to at least do it and make the mistakes and eat it on your own because you made a mistake, and then you want to get that's fine. If you're just like, no, I'm not eating it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
If you want to get into the business, and as we spoke before, like sometimes you have to just jump to the fire to learn.
Totally.
And that's fine as long as you're willing to eat it. If you fuck up, like just own up to it, and instead of making 15 grand on that deal, you make 5 because you fucked up something somewhere, and just do that. And then I learned, and then move on and go from there. That's fine. Because you're not always gonna know. And like we discussed, like sometimes people are always preparing to be prepared, and they never take the leap.
That's totally true.
You know, for fear of failure or fear of success, even at sometimes. So you just had to go in and, like I said, with the magazine, we had no fucking clue what we were doing. We fucked up so many of the first issues with stuff, and we just ate it. We said, okay, we won't bill you this time because, your ad got cut off, and it's our fault, so.
And you kept on going.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I think I get a lot of the just keep trying over and over and don't quit from skateboarding, which is weird. How many times did I jump down a set of stairs to land a trick and do it 50 times before I land the trick and just destroy my body? I mean, I've destroyed both my ankles, my wrists, ribs, concussions, all that stuff, and I just kept going. It almost seems like stupid, like it's insane. So it's weird. I don't know. I think I learned a lot from skateboarding. I associate a lot of success in my life from skateboarding. I hope my kids get into it. I think I really want them to. I don't know if their mother feels the same way. It's a different story, but I hope they get into it.
I totally hear you.
And same with, I raced motocross for years too. And my parents were like pushing me to go do it. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was crazy. They didn't hide anything from me. Like, yeah, go ahead, go do it. Just don't do drugs. I'm like, okay. Anything else was, game on.
That's super cool.
Which was cool. So, but yeah, through skateboarding and through motocross and just anything like that, I think I learned like just not to give up on things. So I really do hope that like other people, aren't afraid of their son or daughter getting hurt with doing some of these, sports, and not even just the general, not even just soccer or football or something, but one of these more individual sports. Like I said, it's you versus yourself ultimately. Dude, with that
absolutely.
stuff. It's you versus yourself with skateboarding and learning a trick and committing to it, and most of the time that's where you got hurt, when you didn't fully commit to landing. You got hurt more than if you just were like, I'll just go for it this time. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man. Just thinking through that, right? It's like, you're right. Especially today's youth needs that more than ever, right? Because to your point, like, you learned perseverance through that, where you had a failure and there's an instant painful lesson that you learned from it. Most people that when they get smacked in the face, metaphorically, in grown-up life, and they feel some small little piece of discomfort, they fucking run the other way.
Yeah.
But you actually, from a young age, dealt with problem, immediate pain, and I'm still going to stick it out, and I'm still going to accomplish what I set out to do. And I think our youth really is softer today than ever before for a lot of reasons.
I feel like I'm old saying that, but yeah, it is true.
So soft,
but
man.
It's crazy that like I would get beat up so much from, jumping down a handrail or whatever, and just get destroyed. Like hands, both palms all bloody, and just bruises and scrapes and whatever everywhere, right? And you go through that pain, you pick yourself up and you go do it again, and then you crash again, and then you pick yourself up. It is a little insane.
It is a little crazy.
You're doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. But sometimes you do get the different result.
You do.
And what's amazing about it is you'll be in so much pain, and you could finally land that trick or whatever, and you're so happy. It's like the endorphins run through your body that you just did it, and all that goes away. Now, the next day you feel like shit. But, during the time, it's great. You finally did it. You finally landed that, and you move on, and you're like, okay, I'm never doing that again. So... But I've seen my fair share of... I'm actually surprised. I've seen my fair share of injuries myself, but the one I never got was I never blew out my ACL.
No?
And I feel like everybody I know has.
Okay.
Not to be like off topic or different.
Well, knock on wood, like...
Never done that one.
Knock on wood.
Everybody else I know has done it. And I'm like, that sucks.
Man.
Even my business partner with the magazine, we were out front. He literally stepped off a curb one day coming out of a Publix down in Florida. He like stepped off the curb and he like tore his ACL real bad.
No crap.
And his meniscus and everything. I was like, what'd you do? He was like in such pain. I'm like, what'd you do? He's like, I don't know. And it's like, what the hell? Are we just getting old? Is that what happened, I guess?
Was it more recent?
No, we were still younger.
Okay.
This is probably like the 6th or 7th year into the magazine that he did it.
Okay.
So this is a while ago.
Okay.
But yeah, we were coming out of a Publix in Orlando, and he stepped off a curb wrong, and
yeah, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? When it's like you do all this crazy extreme stuff and
he's jumped down
withstand
10 stairs and everything else and done all kinds of other shit and fallen and been fine, and then you step off a curb and you tear your ACL and destroy your meniscus and need all this surgery, and it's 8 months of recovery.
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell happened?
That is mind-blowing.
And I've seen that more often than not with people. They do all kinds of crazy shit, never get hurt.
Yep.
It's something dumb usually, and then you get like the worst, injury you've ever had in your life.
Dude, I've been to my chiropractor before, and it's like he's told me stories of people that literally could not walk for like 6 months because everything's thrown out because they freaking sneezed.
Yeah.
Like, how is that even possible? He's like, I have had patients that their body was more mangled from a sneeze than people that were in like a car accident, like head-on collision at 60 miles an hour. It's, it's mind-boggling. Like,
it is sometimes
how any of us are alive,
Oh, I should have been dead a long time. The stupid shit I did as a kid, dude, I should have been dead a long time ago.
That's hilarious.
Like I was telling my girlfriend now, we were driving down, And I was like, we're driving over the bridge going into Ocean City, New Jersey. And I'm like, yeah, I used to jump off this bridge. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, and it's pretty high. I don't know what it is, 50 or 60 feet. We used to jump off.
That's a good time, bro.
Yeah, so we thought, and oh my God, like one of the probably the stupidest thing I ever did, and I survived, was I was on we were driving down a long road in the back of where I live down by Tuckahoe there, and I actually was the only one in the car, and we were filming each other. We watched like Land Speed and stuff from when like before it was Jackass, and I was like, well, let's go do stupid shit too, and we're gonna film each other doing it with like the old school VHS camera. So my friends in the car next to me were filming it. I actually put my car in cruise control going like, I don't know, 40 or 50, and got out the window and got my roof and held like my hand through the window to steer. It was a straight road.
Holy
with
crap.
no, because we thought it was funny. And then eventually climbed back in and took it off and stuff. And like looking back, that was fucking so stupid.
Yeah.
I do not know why I would do that. I was like, I had just gotten my car because I had a red Chevy Beretta. So I think I was like 17. So, and we did that.
Well,
So
when your role models are the guys from Jackass and everything, I can totally understand why you did any of the things that you did.
We thought Land Speed was hilarious, and we did all that stupid shit too. So, and then I actually eventually got to meet all those guys, and it was cool to see. And they're like, "Yeah, we were dumb at. Why would you copy that?"
Well, you guys also made a lot of money doing it, so there's that.
Yeah, I didn't make that off of it. So. But I was actually trying to find the tapes a few weeks ago to see all that stuff. I don't know where they're at. They're at my mom's house somewhere. It's like an old VHS tape, so it might not even work anymore. I mean, this is over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the magnetic strips on VHS tapes eventually just give out.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure.
Do. Yeah.
So, but I tried to find it, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good find if
it'd be great.
And get some of that stuff into digital form.
I fucking love that. Yeah, it'd be great. Look how dumb I was, kids.
Absolutely.
So my ex-wife, I'm like, I've told her some of this stuff. She's like, I really hope our kids aren't like that. I'm like, they're little boys. They're going to be like that.
How old are they?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Okay.
Like 2.5 and 4.5 to be technical at this point.
Technical.
But it is funny, and I say this a lot, and this is random, but my one son, the older one, I think is going to be the shit talker, and I think the younger one is going to be like the bruiser.
Okay.
He's going to come in and save his older brother.
Okay.
You'd usually think it would be the older brother watching out. I think it's going to be the other way. In a really weird sense. I don't know why I feel like that, and I'll tell her that all the time. She's like, they're lovers. I'm like, okay, for now. We'll see.
Are they crazy?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
No.
Not yet.
See, for me, like my perspective, like my son he's going to be 2 in December. Okay. And before that, it's like I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter. So now with my son, like all that I've ever known is little girls that are like cute and cuddly and stuff, right? And now with my son, it's like by the time he was 1, he had a broken leg, stitches in his head. Like the kid's just a freaking lunatic, Like he's always just being. My wife looked at it as like he's just crazy. I'm like, no, that's just being a boy,
Yeah. Well, that's what's funny that you mentioned that. It was the same way with my older one. She like never had any problems at all. The younger one, he's been to the ER like dozens of times already.
Yeah.
With like cut heads and bruises, and like the scariest thing we had was when we first had him. Like a week later, we noticed a big like knot on his neck, and we got so freaked out, thinking, "Oh God, what is this?" And it was called like torticollis or something. I forget what it is, but it's just a knot from the way he was in the womb, and we had to bring him in like 2 or 3 times a week to like physical therapy to work it out.
Really?
But we thought for sure it was like the worst thing. Like we thought it was going to be something crazy.
Especially with your first kid, there's something that doesn't look.
And then
normal.
ever since then, though, man, the kid gets hurt all the time. Every time I go see them, he has a new bruise. He fell off the table. He fell off here, and then the other one is like completely fine. So, but it's weird too, because the other one will get like a paper cut, and it's like the end of the world. This one gets gashes in his head, and he goes to the ER smiling.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? Because I'm sure that when an injury happened with either child, I'm sure your reaction was pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
So it's always interesting, like, well, if I have 2 kids, especially like that, to take it to the extreme, like when you see cases of literal twins that were raised the same way and everything. It's like, how did one turn out like this and one turned out totally polar opposite? Same parenting, same environment, same everything. But I guess it comes down to genetics and it comes down to other things.
Yeah,
And
I agree. And that's where the case of like nature versus nurture or whatever, I'm like, it's definitely nature. Because you could be raised, me and my brother are raised exactly the same way. And he is so antisocial and like, just, I don't know. He's really good with his money and I'm horrible with it. And I'm like out there doing stuff and he's just like, no, I don't want, and it's weird to see. Like, I think it goes back to how we move schools so often. Like I said, I was like, well, I won't be here next year. So I'll make friends with whoever. I don't really care because I won't see them. And he didn't want to make friends because he wasn't going to be there in a year from now. So it's weird to see that dynamic.
It really is,
right? Something like that, yeah. So I'm curious how my kids are going to be when they get. They're extremely smart kids too, which is crazy. But their mom's extremely smart, so
okay,
they get that from her.
Gotcha.
So we'll see. But it's also one of those things too where we've had the discussion of like college and stuff, and she wants them to live, and this is where we really differed with things. She wants them to, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get your degree, come out, get a good job, 401k, blah, blah, blah. And that was how she went. And I never really did that. Like I went to an art school, but I'm always like, no, I'd rather just give them money and tell them to start their own business. And, if they fail in the beginning, that's fine, but they'll learn a good life lesson. And she didn't like that. So I'd rather give the kids like 25 grand to go start their own thing. As opposed to doing this way. It's my own personal opinion. I just don't agree with that anymore. I think it worked before. I think we're in a different world now, and it's different.
I totally agree, dude.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go and get their degrees, and then they can't do anything with it.
Absolutely.
Because some jobs, while it's good to have the degree and stuff, and I'm not knocking it, it's not for everybody, though. Sometimes you can do better, getting in because you just have the street smarts, for lack of a better term,
dude,
of things. Like I'm watching that show Suits right now, which is awesome.
Me and my wife are actually watching it also.
I just started watching that, and it's great to see. Like you have all these Harvard grads, and they pass them all up for the random, drug dealer kid that just was smart and just knew
he was savvy
how to do things differently, and that's how he got in. So I'm like, oh, that's like my life almost.
Dude, yeah, no, I totally hear you, and I think the same. Like, not only do I think that I never went to college, I never even graduated high school, but I don't just think about college for what it is today. I'm trying to look and forecast into the future. Like, I already think that college is a scam largely. And it's something that probably for the last 10 years shouldn't have been pushed like it was in, the 70s and 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's it going to be like in 10 years when we're actually looking at it for my kids and everything,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be even more pointless. Now I think obviously there's always going to be professions where you need to have a formal education,
like a doctor
right?
or a lawyer or something like that. Absolutely.
But still, you could streamline everything for them as well. There is no point in having somebody study, I'm just making something up, right? Like there's no point in having somebody study theology, religion, when they're going to be a fucking doctor, right? Like have them do training that is specific to what they're going to be doing. You're going to make them a better expert at whatever it is that they're trying to do anyway. It's going to take a shorter period of time. It's going to cost less to do so, gets them into the labor force quicker and everything. Like, I don't know. I just don't really see it.
Well, like I said, I don't knock anybody that wants to do it. And like I said, for some people, it's not for them. And other people, that's their thing. That's what they want to do. They want to be, for like lack of a better term, more secure in life, and that probably is the more secure, safe route, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Other people like to go out and take chances, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
It's absolutely right.
So it's I don't know. But I just feel different about schooling than when I did before with things. So I always want the kids to be in the best schools and stuff, without a doubt, but I have my thoughts on like college and things like that. So just based on my own experiences and having friends that went to college. I have so many friends that have gone to college. They do nothing with what they went to college for. They got into something totally different.
Yep.
And it was almost, and like some of them tell you, like, yeah, it was a waste of 60 grand, but Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's how they learned that that's not what they wanted to do anymore.
Absolutely.
Which
Look,
could be the
there's
other
a
way
lot
to
of
look at it, so that's how you got pushed into what you did.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I always wanted to do photography, and skateboarding was like my thing forever. So that's why I did that. And then I was given the opportunity to go work for Thrasher a few months into the magazine, and I ended up turning it down to stay doing my own business, which sometimes I don't know if I regret or not. So, but it was an interesting getting flown out there for the interview and all that stuff too. It was really cool. But then they were like, all right, think about it. I was like, okay.
If you're to think about what you might regret about that, what would it be?
Traveling the world on their dime, essentially, and just being immersed in that environment. But I didn't go forward with it, unfortunately. So, but it was really cool. They invited me out. They flew me out, and I stayed in San Francisco because that's where they're based out of for like 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Took me out to dinners and all that stuff. So it's like, okay. And then at the time, it was incredible money for being what was I then? Like 25, I guess. I forget what it was. It was like 50 or 60 a year, plus like a travel budget and everything else and all this other stuff. I can't remember the exact amount, but for me at the time, that was incredible. I'm sitting here doing this magazine, making like 20 a year, but having the time of my life, but not getting anywhere. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'm gonna stay doing my own thing and see what happens. So, but I think the biggest regret was I would have traveled a lot more.
Gotcha.
With things, and would have been in something that's everybody knows who Thrasher is. People that don't even skateboard know who Thrasher is.
Yep.
And I was like, fuck, I was offered that opportunity, and I turned it down essentially. So it's like it's one of those things where I don't regret because I'm happy where I've ended up in life, but I do think about it every once in a while.
Totally
Where
understand.
would I have been if I had taken that road?
Yep.
I would have been landing in San Francisco and probably miserable there, but that's a whole other story.
But the weather would be nice.
I guess. So
that's funny, man.
But yeah, it's just interesting. But it goes back to what I'm saying with the schooling thing. Like, so many people don't do what they go to school for. They fall into other things. I personally think the trade industry is where people should really be looking more than anything else.
Yep.
I really do that. And as I said earlier, with the whole like contractors, there's no one coming into the industry really. Or there is, but a very smaller amount than there ever was.
Yep.
And you have a lot leaving. So there's a lot of opportunity there to be a plumber, to be an electrician, an engineer, whatever you want to do there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like everything with education, I feel that technology and AI and all the stuff that we're starting to see emerge now, like as it ramps, I think the education system is one of the first things that can be massively revamped with AI and everything. Like, because for me, like growing up as a student, like school failed me. I didn't fail school. School failed me because I didn't learn the way that, I guess normal kids learn, right? Like, and now going through like my own self-development journey over the last, whatever it's been, 10, 12 years of my life, like I don't think I read a book until I was fucking 21,
Yeah.
Now I've read hundreds, right? But so through that, I learned the way that I learn, and it's basically the exact opposite of the way school work. So of course I didn't excel in school or anything, but I understand the reason that schools need to have their education system and programs the way that they do, because if 80% of the children learn this way, that's the way that we're going to freaking teach.
Yeah.
And if you fall in
Yeah,
that
you
20%, sorry, man, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be more easy and affordable than ever to say, hey, we're going to create a customized educational plan for you for kindergarten through 12th grade, and then, college after that, if that's what you so choose. And it's going to be a custom tailored educational plan to you. Like, I don't think we're super far away from that, dude. I think that's realistic in the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't see how that's not going to happen.
No, I agree.
And I think that'll be good. That'll be good for people.
For the ones that have to learn differently than others. That's
right.
Like you said, like you learn differently. I learn differently from anybody else. I
Everybody
fell into, for like, not that I fell into that 20% essentially. Here's how everybody else learns. These ones, sorry.
Yep.
I fell into the sorry ones.
Yep.
Power through it. I was like a C student throughout ever, until I got to college. And I was really good in college because I was actually interested in what I was doing. So
that's a huge piece.
it's weird. Like I went from being an average C student to graduating 4.0, in college. Like, so, I mean, yeah, it was an art school, but still, it was just like, I was more interested in doing it. I actually wanted to do my assignments and stuff where back in high school or whatever, I didn't want to do any of that stuff.
Right.
I didn't care about history or social studies or whatever. I had nothing to do with it.
Yep.
Was bored we used to cut class and go surfing because my school was on a beach. So
that doesn't suck. Yeah.
No, that was fun. Until you got out of the water and they're sitting up there just handing out detention slips.
Oh, man. Worth it, though.
Yeah.
Worth it. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It was interesting. So
I just had a random thought, and it's probably like borderline like conspiracy theory territory, but I don't know. I really think that with the tech and some of the AI stuff that's happening, I really think there's two different paths that we could end up on in the next decade or whatever. I think with the technology, it's going to make it really easy for people to not have to work for companies, right? It's going to make it easy to access information, and all that somebody needs to do stuff on their own, as I'm not talking about everybody running like a massive business, but working for themselves, like as a subcontractor, so to speak, almost, I think that's a very real possibility. Or, so there's no more large or mid-sized companies with 500, 200 employees or whatever. It's like everybody just has their own thing, and you're a photographer and that's what you do, and you are a landscaper and that's what you do, and like you do it for yourself. Or it's going to go the other way, and there's going to be the mega corporations, the Amazons, the Googles, whatever, that every fucking buddy ends up working for them in some capacity. You know what I mean?
I gotcha. Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's totally just a stupid
like I said,
thought,
that's why I like the trade industry stuff most. Because, I mean, yeah, could you eventually develop AI to work and do that probably themselves? Yeah. But I really think that's a lot further down the road than what kind of you're talking about coming up. I do think you're still going to need plumbers and electricians, people that can do hands-on stuff.
But to that point, I think there's going to be fewer people that are working for the big plumbing companies, and I think there's going to be more people that just work for themselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you'll be able to make more money. You'll be able to outsource to technology a lot of the things of your business that you're not good at, the bookkeeping, the accounting, the scheduling, right? Technology can handle all that.
Yeah.
And I'm a fucking plumber. I'm good at turning a wrench, man. I don't want to do all that other stuff. And now,
you're right.
That's the obstacle for a lot of people that try to start a small business and fail, is because they're the technician, right? And they don't know how to do all that other stuff. But now it's going to become a lot more accessible for people.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think the AI stuff's gonna change, like the real estate industry with agents and stuff too. And I've seen on certain things where people, they argue against it. Oh, I don't like this. They're gonna do this, gonna change everything. Like, well, yeah, it is, without a doubt. Things are gonna change. And you just have to adapt to it, and make it work, because it's all coming.
What do you think is the most likely short-term changes?
So,
don't worry, it's not like this is recorded or anything going on the record.
I got it. I think things with how agents go on, I think it's going to fizzle out certain aspects of the business with, coordinators and stuff, kind of what you're talking about. They're going to be able to just do it themselves, and that position's not going to exist anymore. And it's going to get rid of some of them. It's going to streamline the paperwork in general a lot more, where I almost feel like people are going to start being like, why am I, paying out this commission and not getting what they used to, because they can do it all themselves. And I hate to say that because it sucks, but I feel like that is coming. That they're going to be able to just do everything themselves. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I do. But, bigger companies like, let's say Zillow, for example, I feel like they are going to eventually get to that point and streamline it where a buyer can click on the house and essentially fill out their own contract and stuff. click here, do this, and it will be something like that. And that sucks, because I like writing contracts and doing that stuff. I have fun doing it. I enjoy actually touring people and showing them houses and doing all that. But I just feel like that's gonna phase in at some point, and you got to figure out how to adapt to that to some degree. And it like I said, it's weird. It sucks. I don't like it. It's controversial to think and say, but I just foresee that's the way it's gonna go eventually. Just looking at how other things are automated anymore. Like even like McDonald's, like they're phasing out workers and putting in automated things for everything.
Do you think that's a good or bad thing?
I don't know. I don't think it's a good thing because it takes away jobs from people, but on the flip side, I understand as the business owner, you're trying to, a business is almost like a living, breathing thing.
It is.
So what are you going to do to help your, child, essentially, for lack of a better term? Like, how are you going to help them grow and be better? And there's that. The consequences it takes away from other people's livelihoods, and that sucks. But with what I'm saying, like, you eventually just have to adapt and figure out what to do that's going to set you apart and make your value known, I guess you could say. So, and I think some like agents, without naming names, I think there are some agents that have taken upon this, kind of stuff that's coming and have adapted and are growing exponentially more now. And then some are trying to hold on to kind of the old school way of things.
Right.
I just don't foresee it staying that way. And I could be wrong.
The only thing that's guaranteed is change, right? Like nothing ever stays the same no matter what. Change is inevitable in anything, right? So that's why I think like being able to be adaptable is one of the most important qualities or traits that someone can have, because everything's going to change. Like, especially, but we were talking about like the last year in business, in real estate or whatever, like, it's weird and frustrating when you have a lot of success with a specific business or a business practice or whatever, and it's lasted for a long time, and then after a certain amount of changes happens, it just doesn't work anymore, and it takes some time to accept that, well, shit, that just isn't the way things work anymore. And I do have to adapt and I do have to change,
Yeah.
But it's inevitable. Like we experienced a lot of changes. Actually, you'll get a kick out of this story. And maybe you'll actually kick me for it. But do you remember, it was probably about a year ago when Bright MLS put out a notice that they were no longer accepting any listings that had the verbiage assignment contract or equitable owner or anything like that. Yeah, that was because of this guy. That was our fault. I got so many calls from people like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't list our wholesale deals on the MLS anymore. And I told them the story. I'm like, yeah, that was actually from one of our sellers, which back to our topic earlier, like, we totally explained what we were doing to this seller. They even signed like additional documents saying that we were going to list their property on the MLS and all this stuff, right? Like so transparency couldn't have been more crystal clear. But whatever, when they saw their property listed on the MLS, they called Bright and they were all pissed off. Basically, I think that they were angry about how the house looked like in the photos. It's like, hey, we can change that, but no, they were pissed off. So they called, they complained. Bright reaches out to us and everything. They're like, oh, well, like it's a equitable interest. Like you can't really do that. And we showed them all our documentation and everything. They're like, okay, well, look, here's the thing. Yes, contractually, legally, you did nothing wrong. You're totally fine, but we can't allow that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. So just like that, we're not able to list any properties on the MLS anymore. So I got so many calls in that following week from other wholesalers. Dude, did you hear what happened? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I caused it.
Yeah, it was me. My bad. But it was so interesting. Like that happened, and then the next day, we had a solution. I already had an answer. Like, it wasn't great, it wasn't sexy, but it was a way that we could still operate, still basically do what we were doing, just another way of doing it. And I talked to, a dozen people. nobody else like came up with anything. Nobody else came up with a solution or whatever. And I told a couple of the guys what we were doing to get around it. And none of them ever did it. None of them adapted. They just stopped listing stuff on the MLS. And it's like, damn, dude, how are you going to accept defeat that easily?
Yeah.
Like, this is just one minor thing. These guys are calling and they're like, oh my God, our business is like stopped in its tracks. It's like, all right, well, what are you going to do about it? Figure something out and make a pivot. It sucks. There's additional paperwork that we have to do and some additional disclosures and stuff. And boom, we're right back to doing what we were doing, just in a different way that now is not only contractually and legally allowed, but it's within Bright's framework. Okay, cool. You know? Like, you just have to adapt, dude. You have to.
That's what I'm saying with everything going on. You have to adapt to things.
Yep.
You know, I mean, even just the other week with this stuff, and I didn't realize why this was such a big deal, but how Bright changed the compensation to, you know, paying out a buyer's agent $0.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and everybody made a big huff and puff. I was like, well, it was always $1 anyway. I mean, it didn't change. Like, can some people do it? Yeah, and they're legally allowed to do that. And the buyer's agent is responsible for collecting it from their buyer or whatever. But I don't foresee anybody really doing that. Can they now? Yeah. But I didn't understand the big huff and puff about the whole $0 thing. I think it got overblown.
Some things do.
It was $1.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Some things do, but
I get it.
People are scared of change. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's like, dude, it's $1. That's not.
It really didn't change much.
But it's change, right?
Yeah. I think that's what happened. Everybody overlooks it and they look way too far into it. Well, this is what could happen. Yeah, and that's probably going to happen at some point. It might be 20 years from now.
Yep.
But I do think that, you know, the real estate industry has changed so much just in the past, since I started 7 years ago, it's changed so much.
Yep.
You know, with just everything. It's just different now. You know, like you used to see, even with commissions have lowered a lot amongst things. And I feel like that's not going to end. You know, and like I said, I hate to say it, but I think that's coming. You know, like it's 10 years, 20 years, but it's going to get to that point.
Yep.
You know, I mean, think about like companies like Amazon, like years, you know, when he was first starting stuff and they all thought he was crazy for what he was doing. And then he put logistics into place of how you can buy stuff online and get it the next day and not pay shipping or anything and all that. And like, really thought that was insane. And it did. You know, and the other big one that I always liked was Netflix going up against Blockbuster. You're crazy. This is stupid. It's never going to happen. You know, and then there's one Blockbuster left in the world right now in Oregon. That's it. And it's just the nostalgia, I think, of it.
Totally.
But they overtook them because they were different and were told it will never work. People aren't going to do this. And now that's all it is.
Yep.
You know, so cable companies just the same with everybody cutting their, you know, cable bill and stuff.
It's change.
It just comes, you know, and it's like you either adapt to it or you don't.
Yep.
You know, and we were talking about a funny thing the other day, me and my mother, about how, do you remember when you first had a cell phone, you actually had to buy minutes?
Of course I do.
Yeah. And you waited till 9 o'clock when minutes were free, you know, and you had to like do certain things. And like, yeah, it was wild. Like I remember having that Nokia phone and like, you know, and a text
the
cost you a
9010
minute.
or whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's funny to see how much it's adapted since then. You know, now you just pay and it's all free. You know, I mean, not free, but you have unlimited everything.
Yep.
You know, but when they first started with cell phones, it was you had 200 minutes or, oh, well, Joe, he's got the 500-minute plan. You know, that's why he's on his phone all day or whatever. It was wild to see. And you waited till 9 o'clock, you know, and it was crazy.
How things have changed, man.
Yeah.
How things have changed. It's wild.
Now your phone is straight up a computer that can do anything.
Dude, it really is.
When I had my Nokia, it was basically just to call my mom to pick me up or whatever, or play Snake.
Snake was awesome.
Yeah.
Snake was awesome.
You know, there's always the kid that said he got to level 99. Everybody's like,
yeah, no way, dude.
Bullshit.
No way. Show me or it didn't happen.
But Snake was like the big game.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's just wild to think how things changed. Like to go back to what you said, how things do change so much, and they do. And stuff comes out of nowhere that you don't think is ever going to make it, and it does.
Yep.
You know, even the internet in general.
Yep.
This is stupid. It's not going to work. No one's buying computers to talk to each other.
Here we are.
And then now here.
Yep.
So to go back to everything, I think real estate is going to change a lot in the next, decade with a lot of things, and people aren't going to be happy. and it's going to suck.
So
but
the
you just gotta
way
figure out
that
a way to
real
do it.
estate is transacted is going to change. But what do you think about real estate like as a fundamental asset class? Like, can it really change that much? You know what I mean? Like as far as somebody that wants to own rentals or somebody that wants to flip properties.
I don't think that's going to change as much. I just think the acquisition of how you go about it will change.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't think the
Yeah,
actual.
I think I'd agree with
I
that.
don't think the actual market itself and what you're talking about, owning rentals and all this is going to change so much. I think it's just going to be the acquisition and how they're going to streamline it to, phase certain things out to be cost effective.
Got it.
That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
I think real estate itself is always going to be the same, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't build any more land. I mean, I guess
Yeah, but there's some things that could happen that would massively change everything, right? Like I was just reading an article that New York City just like banned all Airbnbs. It's like, okay, well that changes industry massively.
Yeah.
Like what is going to be a repercussion of that? Like there were 13,000, I think, Airbnbs that I read in the article. It's like, that's a lot of people that own a lot of assets that I'm sure accounts for, crap, I'm terrible at mental math, but that's probably tens of billions of dollars worth of real estate that now they have to pivot and change their strategy. And I know enough about the New York City rental market to know that, God, it's almost impossible to make money with anything. So if them investors can make any sort of return doing short-term rentals, like cheers to them, because I don't know what else could be done with that property.
Do you think it'll be one of those things where they just sell back the rights for you to do it? So they ban it for a while, and I feel like there'd be a push where New York says, "Okay, yeah, well, for $1,000, fee a year, you can now utilize that, but you have to fill out all this paperwork, and you have to pay us the $1,000, and then you're allowed to do it, almost like a permit to be an Airbnb." I almost feel like it was taken away, and now it's going to be sold back to you.
I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, if their actual intention behind what they're doing is to put more long-term, affordable rental real estate back on the market, that seems counterintuitive to that goal.
Yeah.
But
True.
at the end of the day, I mean,
about it like
thinking of an area like New York City, like how affordable are you going to be able to make it anyway? And now it's like if we go to the other end of the extreme, it's like now we're talking, well, I'm sure they already have some form of rent control anyway. I don't know much about their market. But yeah, now what is everything going to be? You have to own the property and you can only collect this amount of rent per month. Like I know there are areas that have rent control in place, and those are definitely not areas that I would want to own rentals, but the problem still exists. It's like, okay, well, if nobody wants to do that, but the cost of the housing is still so massive that people can't afford to buy it, how are you bridging this gap? The only way that you're going to bridge it is by crashing the fucking market and making prices drop exponentially to where people, because the rental market is out and everything, nobody wants to invest there, so it's just cheap enough for people to buy there. But maybe that's what New York needs anyway. I don't know. Like, what's going to happen? Never mind.
I don't know enough about their market to even go into
speculate.
It.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, with everything since COVID, right? Like, I still know that commercial real estate is like real rocky, and we'll see what's going to happen with everything. But like office space, right? Like, it's not a super desirable thing right now because we proved that a lot of companies can operate with their teams working remote and everything. Now, obviously, like a lot of people have brought all their remote workers back in office and everything because it's like, okay, we did it. We survived. We still made money, but we're better in person, obviously. So, they're doing that. But
it is an interesting thing to think about that you had this dynamic that happened with COVID, and people, as we've been talking about, some of them adapted and got through it and made it work however they had to. And some gave up real easy and like, well, we can't operate anymore. And other businesses figured out ways of, touchless, deliveries and of food or whatever, or curbside pickup is like, dude, curbside pickup didn't really exist before COVID. No, now it's still a thing now. You can still do it. And it's crazy to think that like someone thought like, okay, well, we could do this. And this gets us around, any of the legality things, and we can still survive. Is it optimal for what we want to do? No, because it's different and it's changed. But a lot of, some businesses just gave up, and some, as we talked about, figured out how just to make it work.
Yep.
They had to. They weren't willing to give up so easy. Well, there's got to be a way around it.
Yep.
It's sad, but there's almost a loophole in everything.
Of course.
There's a way around something somewhere. You just have to figure it out sometimes.
Yep.
And get creative.
I have so much fun though, like poking the bear on Facebook from time to time with, because every time that I post anything about, work from home or anything like that, and me not wanting it in my company, and that's not what we do and not how we operate, I get so many people bitching at me that are like, oh, well, I work remote and I'm not one of them people that take advantage and I get more done and everything. And it's like, maybe you do, but I think the statistics have shown that the vast majority of people are less productive and get less done and steal time from the company when they're working from home.
Yeah.
Than the other way around, That's why I'm actually not sure if it's a real article or not, but I saw a headline a couple weeks ago that I just spit there. It basically said that the remaining employees that Zoom, the video conferencing software, the remaining remote employees that Zoom had as of a couple of weeks or months ago, they required all of them to come back in the office. Like, talk about fucking irony, man. It's
I didn't read the article, but I saw the same headline where it was like, Zoom employees have to report back to work, to their physical office. Yeah, I didn't really look into the article, but I thought that was funny too.
It's pretty awesome. Even if it was just clickbait, it's like,
make it. Yep. So you don't have to. And now you're requiring your own, it's crazy.
Yep. I think Elon is the best troll on all of that stuff anyway, because he's basically just said to everybody, like, yeah, cool, you want to work remote? That's cool. You can go do it. Not here.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's an interesting character.
He is, for sure. So let's bring it back to real estate and everything. So I know that you've done a whole lot of things. You've done flips. You represent buyers and sellers on like the retail side, right? Like, what else do you do? How else if somebody is listening and they want to reach out to you, how can you help them?
Besides just the basic transactions of things, I would say mostly marketing stuff, marketing some of my investors' properties and stuff. I do a little different than how other people would look at it. I try not to go by the normal means of things. By that I mean, like, I might make. I used to do it a long time ago. I used to name the houses. This house is named John. This house is Sally, or whatever, and do like skits with them. I haven't done that in a long time, but I used to do stuff like that.
Do skits with them. Elaborate.
Yeah. Like the one I pretended like I was like this is a long time ago. What's the word for it? Like a Steve Irwin type, like, jungle guy, and I was crawling through the grass, approaching the house and saying, "Here we have, this house in its natural habitat," or whatever.
Dude, that's
and
awesome.
And it's doing really goofy stuff like that. And it was gimmicky, and I got away from it, but I want to get back to doing stuff like that because it was just different and it was fun. I used to have fun doing it, And then I had some people say, "Oh, that's just gimmicky. Like, that's not." I'm like, okay. So I got away from it, but I do want to get back to stuff like that.
Dude, you of all people dealing with and being resilient the way you are, fuck that. Don't listen to them haters. You're always going to have haters. Just run with it. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, so it used to be stuff like that. Just general, I've just learned from dealing with investors on things how to, like I was saying before, how to get a deal to go through sometimes that everybody thinks is dead. It's done. It's not going to happen. I always try and figure out, like, well, there's got to be a way. Let's kick the dead horse like 3 or 4 more times and just see what else we can do here. Is it going to be the best for everyone? Maybe not. And then same too is like I try and just keep my cool with most deals. And that's a big thing that I like. And I've had very difficult transactions that I've gone through sometimes. I had one recently over in Carney's Point with someone. The best part about it was the agent stayed as cool as I did throughout it. She was awesome, and I sent her a long email after we were done. I said, "Thank you so much for staying calm and collective. You didn't overrepresent. You were always willing to talk with me to figure out a solution, and that's how I want to do things. I always want to figure out a solution. You do deal sometimes with people, and they just scream and yell at you.
Yep.
you know, and
It's
they
not helpful in any
overrepresent
way.
and they say this. I'm like, okay, I get it, but okay, how can we figure out this solution here? The buyer wants this, the seller wants this. Like, well, there's got to be a means here. And I really pride myself, I would say, and I usually try and do that with most agents, is stay cool and calm and try and take the emotions out of it.
I love that.
I almost feel like agents should actually have to go to school for like psychology for like a month before they get their license.
Ooh, I love that.
Because I feel like you do that a lot. You're dealing with so
100%,
many emotions.
Absolutely.
With things. And it is hard, and I've learned through trial and error and still making the mistakes to this day. But I do feel like you have to learn how to control your own emotions, how to help other people control their emotions, and just try and keep it as the transaction and not all this other stuff going on. Stuff does happen in people's lives and things, and it gets crazy. But you got to try and keep it together sometimes.
Totally agree. I think you need to keep it together all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, you can benefit in almost any situation, any case by understanding psychology and being able to communicate better, because understanding psychology helps you communicate better.
Like, I
Hands
almost
down.
feel, and if people are going to hate this, but I almost feel like we should have another CE class that's just called psychology. I know agents are going to hate that because like, oh, I don't want to do any more CE, but like, I feel like we should almost. You should have like a 2-hour CE course on just psychology of a buyer, psychology of a seller, and whatever studies they can find just to go through certain things. I feel like that's more beneficial than some of the other stuff that they make you repeat and take. I'm like, well, okay, yeah. You know, I feel like there's other parts to it than just the actual transaction that you need to learn. And I make the mistake myself still, but I try and get better with it. So I think that's a good thing to have, is just everyone trying to stay cool and calm.
That's great advice.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but
That's great advice, man. I love that.
that's all you can do. So
That's it, man. That's it. So how can people find you if they, and I do have to mention too, if you're not going to toot your own horn, it's like, I've seen you, like you've bought properties from us as wholesale deals before, but you've also represented other buyers like on wholesale deals as well. And you 100% like understand what their interests are, what their goals and objectives are. And you do an incredible job of conveying that information and basically going out and hunting and finding a deal that is going to fit what it is that they're trying to do. And, you know, in my shoes from the wholesaler perspective, like it's very rare to see somebody that goes above and beyond like you do for your clients and actually understand what it is that they want and go seek it out. Like that's incredible. You know, like that's a massive thing.
Thank
so
you. I
anybody
appreciate
that
it.
is
I don't
hunting
like
for
to
deals,
toot my own horn and do stuff like that. I like to hate on myself. I'm like a self-hated person. So, but I appreciate that because I do try and do that. And I get that from
dude, it's
some
so
of the
clear and
clients I
so
work with
transparent
sometimes.
that you go above and beyond for the people that you work with. Like,
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times for sellers I've, you know, painted windowsills or something to pass FHA things or whatever. And there's other agents out there that they know that they do the same thing too.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of them out there that do go above and beyond. They don't just say, well, you got to get this done and the seller can't, or whatever happens. We have to get it. I've done it multiple times where I've gone out and bought a bucket of paint. It's not the nicest looking job by any means, but I've gone out and scraped and painted windows for, you know, for an FHA buyer or, you know, whatever it might be, like help try and make the repairs that I can. You know, obviously I'm not a contractor. I'm not licensed, so I can't do so much because that's not what they're asking for. But usually try and figure out a way to help them and get it done.
Yep.
You know,
And that's massive, dude. That's massive. So if somebody wants to find you, wants to reach out, they listen to this whole episode and they're like, I need to reach out to this guy. Where are they finding you? You're on social, you're on Facebook, Instagram.
I would say best is just to either call or text me.
Okay. Love that.
It's 609-338-3024. That's my cell.
Love it.
Pretty much always available. That or just michael.mazur@compass.com.
Love it, man.
Those are probably the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been awesome. I'm so glad that you came in. We got a
Absolutely.
chance to sit down
It was
and
interesting.
talk about some stuff and everything, and I'm grateful for it. So
Yeah.
thanks,
no problem.
brother.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bounds. Yeah, right now. Yeah.
My perspective
I'll grab one.
for probably a long time has been that I don't really care what people think of me, you know? But now that I think about it more, like we were just talking about with the social media and everything, it's like, I really don't care what people think about me, but I do care, like, really everything that I'm doing with the wholesale company. Like, I've thought about it a lot, you know, over the last year, since it's been a challenging year. It's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, like when I really think about it, I've made so much more fucking money flipping houses and buying rentals than I have wholesaling, hands down. It's like, if I just look at the revenue number from wholesale, like it looks sexy. But when I look at actual profit or what has happened over the last 9 years that I've been doing real estate stuff, and like how my net worth has increased, has almost nothing to do with wholesale. You know, it's like, so why the fuck am I doing it? But I think a lot of it is because, well, I stumbled into it in the first place, you know, and then, I don't know. I really like the idea of being able to maximize my skills to be able to either improve the market or improve other people's investment portfolios or their career or whatever. And I don't know. I guess I'm also like a glutton for punishment, so I keep fucking doing it, you know?
I hear you there. I'm definitely a glutton for punishment with a lot of stuff.
Christ.
I do it to myself sometimes.
Yeah, well, we all do. We all do.
So that's interesting to hear. I thought more or less you were more wholesale heavy than
I am.
flip
I am.
heavy.
But which is funny though, yeah, because like seriously, I posted this on social that I bought a flip in Milford, Delaware, like I don't know, a month and a half ago or something. That was a wholesale deal, and our buyer backed out like the morning of settlement. So sellers were dealing with pre-foreclosure and everything. So I didn't have time to like resell the deal to anybody, and I didn't want it to fall apart. So it's like, fuck it, I'm buying it.
just do it yourself. Yeah.
Just going to do it. And I bought that. Dude, it probably could have been like a 10-day rehab, if you will. I ended up being like almost 4 weeks, but that's because, you know, really wasn't pushing or managing on it. But we spent, I think it was $16,000 total in rehab. Dude, gonna end up netting like $65,000 on that.
Oh wow, that's good.
You know, like
Yeah.
and that's